1971, I was hitchhiking across the country, and at one point I hopped on a freight train in Denver and rode it to Chicago. After that first train trip, my experimental train trip, I got off that train and I thought, I'll never do this again because the ride is so bad in a boxcar, and it's slow. It's not a fast way to get to your destination. But I stayed with it. It took 3 days to get from Denver to Chicago. And I made a lot of mistakes. The train broke up in Galesburg, and after I spoke to that guy in the yards, I got on a boxcar directly behind the units, directly behind the engines. And it was a low ceiling, it started to rain, and when the train started going, all the diesel smoke poured into the boxcar. And I thought, I'm going to die. They're going to find me in here in Chicago in 6 or 8 hours, dead. And I panicked. I put my gear next to the boxcar door, got out of the boxcar while the train was moving, climbed on the side by the door, and boosted myself up top and made my way down the train. Now, I didn't jump the cars like they do in the movies, but I went down between each car, over the coupling and then up the ladder until I got about 7 cars down. And I am telling you, that was the worst ride I ever took. I was scared to death because I wrapped my arm around the ladder between the cars and staring down at that coupling all night. The couplings, beating and banging against each other and the sparks coming up from the wheels. And I thought, I just got to hang on. And so I did. I stayed on all night until the morning. And after that, I thought, I'll never do this again. But then I mulled it over and figured I really have to start document the people who ride the rails, if there were any left. I think, I never asked the question, but I think these guys would not have considered themselves homeless. I think railroad jungles and the railroad is what they considered home. Most of them weren't looking for a home. They were, I don't know if you'd call it content, but they were settled into, their lives. I think from being on the trains, it's not the destination, because most of the guys have been to all the destinations, but it's that 6 or 8 hour run between destinations where you're on, it's not a high, but it's like nothing can touch you, when you're moving on that train. And I think for a lot of people that's exhilarating, and I think that provides the motivation for a lot of it. It's difficult to say. Most of them are real loners, but they do enjoy the camaraderie of other fellas in their same situation. Because sometimes we'd jungle up and there'd be several of us in the jungle, and they seem to enjoy sitting around the fire at night, talking to each other, but for the most part, they were fiercely independent. So at the end of the day, they usually walked off by themselves.